What's up, folks, and welcome back to a brand new video. I'm SanJev, your host for today's video, because this is my channel, not BT's, not Worms, not Noggins, not Drifties, my channel, and you can't convince me or anyone else otherwise. One of the first videos I posted on this channel that when I really started posting videos on this channel was my Creepypasta video, Reading Laughing Jack, and I have decided to do a second Creepypasta video. Now, I have sat down over the past week what shirt am I wearing? Multiple times trying to find a way, or trying to find a Creepypasta that I would want to read. Now, and I found one. Now, I personally have not read the Creepypasta, because I'm fucking horrified of pasta. Don't bring pasta to my house, because I will die. I will have a panic attack. I will vomit all over the place. And yeah, oh my gosh, hold on, just thinking about pasta. I'm horrified, bro. So yeah, I'm horrified at pasta. You're horrified at pasta. But we're gonna be reading some special pasta today, some creepy pasta. So let's go and get started. The Strangest Apocalypse by Kimber. I saw the end of the world and its harbinger from the top of a mountain. It's possible that no one else had a good view as I did, but even if I wanted to find out, I can't. Nobody I've asked has corroborated my story. Most just laugh and go along with my excuse that I'm writing a horror book and want to interview random people about the area. Aware 2 or 3 have gotten a faraway look in their eyes before shaking their head and refusing to talk about it further. Bro, the piss is coming out of my pants, bro. I am pissing my pants. I'm gonna go change my clothes real quick. I'm so fucking, I'm horrified. I'm pissing my pants, bro. I have to go change my clothes. I'll be right back. Okay. I'm ready. That look both scares and comforts me. After a few dozen interviews with an equal amount of coffee and beer to help bribe a story from the interviewer, I realized that 1,000-yard stare more and more often. A part of me had hoped that I'd gone through the most vivid nightmare ever experienced. That hope gets smaller and smaller the more often I ask someone about the black skies, the red rain, and the yellow eyes. Yellow! The color my pants get whenever I read these stories. Why do I have underwear on my head? What the fuck is wrong with my life? The last person I interviewed went pale and nauseous after I asked if she remembered anything about that week. Before I could make sure she was okay, she ran off into a nearby park, sobbing and telling me to stay the hell away from her. It might just have been a creepy behavior, especially for a girl that had just been interviewing her, but I sat at the coffee shop for hours until I saw her come out of the park and drive away in her car. Y'all, I'm shaking right now. What that coffee shop's? What, it sells pasta! I hit my phone! Her makeup had smeared all over her face. Her jeans and jacket covered in dirt and grass stains. That was a week ago. It was the last time I doubted that the apocalypse I witnessed had happened. The interview stopped, but that burning desire to learn either if or what anyone else had seen led me here. I want to tell my story and see who else has remembered. Hopefully I can jog your memory. I'll play that the memories aren't as horrifying as mine or the woman who ran off into a park for hours. I am a security guard for a mining company that owns the mountains near my apartment complex. A job? That's almost scarier than pasta! Like most security guards, I signed onto the job for the amazing work-to-pay ratio. Half my shift was doing patrols while listening to audiobooks, the other half keeping half an eye on the security cameras posted around the mountain while I played video games. So he's in FNAF, basically. Every now and then, I'd have to turn away hikers and check the radio towers near my station, which was what the security company was really paying me for. The first rumble came during lunchtime. I was in my building, a concrete little thing I called my hut, quote unquote, looking at the security cameras, and eating an egg salad sandwich. My cup of coffee started to vibrate every few seconds. Nothing to worry about. Earthquakes happen around the valley pretty often, sometimes as often as 6 in 1 month. The worrying started when the shaking grew more intense, yet happened at the same rate. Put another way, earthquakes usually don't have a pace like footsteps. It's what makes that one scene from that dinosaur movie so memorable. Oh, I know what movie they mean. Bikini Girls versus Dinosaurs. You know the Bikini Girls versus Dinosaurs, pop culture sensation. One of the best movies to ever come out. It's directed by one of the best directors of all time, Kenneth D. Barker. You know Kenneth D. Barker. He also directed On the Shoulders of Giants and Catalina, a new kind of superhero. About a transvestite that becomes a superhero. That is not a transphobic film at all. Yeah, totally not. Yeah, that film. You don't know that film? Well, get up with the times, you pop culture, you uncultured fuck. The shaking got more intense. Thick binders containing company SOPs started bouncing off the shelves. Monitors were shaken from their stands and crashed to the ground. My coffee cup bounced off of the table and spilled onto the ground. I didn't even notice. I had my head in my hands, curled up into a corner and praying that whatever was happening would just stop. Something screamed. I wish I could say it had been myself, but there was a distant screeching trumpeting that overpowered any shouting I could have done. A switch flipped in my head, and I needed to know what the hell was happening outside of my building. Kenneth D. Barker, bro. Y'all didn't know who Kenneth D. Barker is, bro. Got mad, so now he's gonna come kill this guy, bro. He's causing the apocalypse. This is your fault, not his. You disgraced us to society. My balance was hard to maintain, but to time it well with the shakes that were now shaking everything, so much that a view of the entire planet splitting and shaking open was what I assumed would be outside of my hut's window. But if I had to see, if the world was about to end in a fiery explosion, I wanted to see it go. Better that than crying in a cement corner and getting concussions from my head knocking against the walls. Fumbling but somewhat stable, I made it to the window that overlooked the north side of the mountains. Something was crossing the sky. It was higher than the highest clouds, at least 4 or 5 miles in the air. Typo, but probably much taller than that. A black writhing thing that stretched from horizon to horizon, caging the entire sky and casting a pitch-black eclipse in a wave across the valley. There were only a few moments to take in the sight before a leg rather, crashed into the middle of the valley. I told you it was Kenneth, man. He brought his giants from the famous movie On the Shoulders of Giants, which you should watch because it's literally like one of the best movies in ever and one of the most iconic giant movies. So, yeah, he sent his giants after you. That's your fault, not mine, man. You should have watched the damn movie. The impact threw me around the room like a rag doll. After landing, I stayed there on the floor and waited. My ability to think was gone at that point. There was only a raw fear while the shaking continued. Something I have noticed about this story is there is a lot of typos. Like earlier, he said 4 or 500 feet in the air. No, he put FOR instead of FOUR. So fix your damn spelling, bitch. One more shake. That was as powerful as the last. Then another weaker one. They'd started to subside, continuing off towards the south until the room was shaking just enough to make tiny waves in the pool of coffee on the floor next to me. I don't remember how long I laid there on the floor, only that I got up after the coffee started soaking into my clothes. At one point, I thought I heard a low thrumming as the emergency generator below the station kicked into gear. My body was sore, and it hurt to move, but nothing was broken, or at least, when I finally sat up and looked at what was left of my hut, broken bones weren't stabbing any of my arnards. A part of my psyche realized that I was technically still at work and took over. As far as that part of my brain was aware, the room was a mess and my lead would kill me if she got there for her shift. One of the radios on the charging dock was still in its socket. I took it out and dumped the talk button on the side. I low-key look like Mother Teresa right now. But I think it's hilarious that, like, this guy is, like, literally witnessing a giant destroy his valley. And then next thing you know, he's like, oh crap, I'm gonna get fired for this. Like, bro, you're about to die. Like, without a doubt. And you worried about your job, bro? No paycheck is worth that much. No paycheck is worth that much. Talking to myself with underwear in my head. It's 5 o'clock in the afternoon. I could be outside or not, but nope. I'm doing this. Hey, Maze. Maze was short for Macy. A supervisor that had a trailer turned office at the bottom of the mountain. No response. Maze! Maze! Please respond. I need help. We let go of the talk button for a response. None came. Obviously no one came. You didn't even make them wet first. Maze! Maze! Please tell me you're there. All of the monitors are broken on the floor. I feel like my whole body's bruised and all the paperwork is soaking in the puddle of coffee. What do I do? No answer, but a slight echo from my shouting off of the concrete walls. I was really starting to notice the silence when a few pitter-patters came from the roof. So, the narrator obviously doesn't know when you go through a maze, you're supposed to find the way out, so, yeah, do that, you dumb. At least it's not raining, I cursed as I walked to the window. Radio still hearing. Maze, can you? The window was dark, pitch black. A short time ago I could see an entire valley below a bright blue summer sky. I imagined just for a second that my hut had been sunk into the ground or somehow put into some void that I'd never escaped from. A roar came from behind me and far overhead. The sound crested my mountain, and with it a green light that flowed along the sky the same direction as the sound, north to south. I could see the valley for a few seconds as the dim light crept south, a portion of it funneling into what I'd seen crash into the middle of the valley. I referred to it as a leg before, and even now, I think that's the most accurate term for it. The tank had bent and pushed into the ground while I saw it. Might sound odd to bring it up right now, but I want you to consider something I heard referred to as the terminal freakout point. At what point, when stuff starts to go down, do you start to panic? Everyone has one, even the most carefully planned and prepared apocalypse preppers you've heard about online. It took 3 things happening in quick succession for me to reach my own terminal freakout point. The first was realizing that the red haze in front of the lights down in the valley was the rain itself. The rain was thick and red, mist formed along the bottom of the valley that made any attempts at clearly watching what was happening close to impossible. Second was the things that came out the sky. Okay, man, this is starting to get scary. I don't know if I can do this. Even now, sitting here in the library, a public computer, people are giving me looks as my teeth chatter and my legs start to shake, but I'll push through. They didn't follow the sky, per se. Rather, they hung from it. That black sky, which was so far above our own, was partially illuminated by a litany of yellow orbs that descended from whatever had swallowed the valley. Maybe even the world. Up in darkness. Weather encompassed us. The yellow light illuminated a billowing black cloud that seemed to alternate at a fixed height in the sky. The closer the bright yellow light got to the ground, the more their light refracted into a rain and mist dropping into the valley. It would have been a fathomable mercy if this hadn't been the case, but illuminated whatever they were. I still don't know, but whenever I bring this up to people I interview, this is always the part where they get uncomfortable. The subconscious must remember what the things look like as I do, very clearly at that. Heads. Can Sweetie come out? Huge black heads with glowing yellow eyes that shone like spotlights. Most were human, though some were animals like cats, dogs, or horses. At a few points when I was still in enough shock to keep staring at them, I saw the heads of insects with dozens and dozens of glowing eyes. They all descended and screamed. The screams didn't have any sound to them, but the expression of agony on each of the faces were quite clear. When they were done screaming, they ascended back into the sky to be replaced by another. The valley was awash in yellow lights, red rain, and red mist. I still wasn't at my terminal freakout point, hanging off the edge, sure, but I was struck stupid with fear and confusion at what I was seeing. I wasn't pushed off the edge until I did start to hear screaming. All at once, I heard an entire valley of people scream. I'm actually not sure if this is real or not. It's a real possibility that it was a nightmare that I had while I holed up in my hut for the next week. But I think it was real. I pray to God literally that my mind doesn't have the imagination to think of a sound like what I heard. Millions of wails of despair from a valley of people reaching the terminal freakout point. It formed a choir that I'm sure mimicked the deepest bowels of torment in hell. I screamed too. Screamed until I tasted blood. After that point, my memory gets a bit fuzzy. What do I remember? What I do remember is pulling my window curtain shut and never looking out of them again. My concrete hut became my home, which I left only when I needed to go to the bathroom outside under an umbrella. It was horribly uncomfortable, but I made it work. There were emergency rations and snacks enough for 3 days. I dragged it out for a week. After 5 days, my stomach was making weird gurgling noises with pain, while pain racked my entire body. like my insides were tearing themselves up. There's not a doubt in my mind that if I hadn't had the emergency lights, a few paperbacks in my bag, and a few cases of water, I wouldn't have gladly thrown myself off of one of the mountain's steep cliffs. I'm actually not sure if that's the truth or not. I hope it is. Besides my books, all of my existence was really for a week was the countdown. That initial wave of green that went across the sky and into a pillar repeated itself. Every time it did, I heard screams come from the skies that made my ears ring, even when I was stuck my fingers in them. Stuck my fingers in them? What the fuck? The intervals between each of the waves got shorter and shorter over time. At one point, I was bored enough to do the math, the pencil and notebook, or at least the best math I could, to see when there wouldn't be any more breaks between the waves of green light and screams. A week, whatever else was going to happen in this nightmare, would be in a week. I waited. Besides dying, which was still more scary to me than what's going on outside, there was nothing else to do. I'ma just finish the story from over here. At the end, I was so delirious from the constant screaming in the air, mostly from the sky, occasionally from the valley, the hunger and the time that was impossible to keep track of in my hut, that I crawled out into the rain to see the end for myself. Even thinking about walking made me nauseous. The final vivid memory I have of the apocalypse started with me dragging myself to the edge of the concrete platform my hut was on, and looking out to a destroyed and emaciated valley. There wasn't much time to get a good look, not that I could have gotten one through the red mist. But I did see that there were still some lights bouncing around the buildings. A few of the skyscrapers in the downtown area across from my mountain were burned to a crisp. I swear I could see a party of some kind going on the rooftop of the tallest one. An insane sight, but I can't throw any stones. I was there to watch too, and I did watch. The waves of green lights and screaming heads in the obsidian sky increased to such a frequency that I'm pretty sure I felt my ears give out to a painful whining sound. Is this Weird Mageddon from Gravity Falls? Like, I'm being serious. Like, we have a valley, which, the Gravity Falls Valley Gravity Falls is in a valley. It's the strangest or weirdest apocalypse. That was the title of the story. So, Weird Mageddon. And then a party, because we see a party happen. You know what? Enough with the conspiracy theory. Let's just keep reading. The last thing I saw was another head descending from the sky. At that point, the heads and the black inky ceilings were a constant green that exaggerated the glowing eyes. I'm not completely sure, but I think that was the last head I saw was mine. It matched perfectly, both screaming in a mix of defiance and subservience at whatever was coming. Then there was a flash in my memory. It's yellow. My screams were echoing off the apartment walls. I was in bed, just as I had been the day it all started. I took some time for me to calm down and remember what a healthy body felt like to move around in, while I ate so much that I puked. Despite what I said earlier, I'll admit that I've never thought it was a dream. I wouldn't have tried interviewing anyone if that was true. I guess that deep down I still hold some kind of hope that what I saw didn't happen, even though I know it did. While taking breaks from writing this for you, I've noticed fewer people are out on the streets. I'm downtown now, and even during times of low traffic, you used to be able to see at least a dozen people walking wherever, plus the constant flow of public transport. There was still plenty of people going about their business when I first woke up, much to my shock. On my way around the block to stretch my legs just now, I saw one person on the street. It was a woman in a business suit, a laptop case hanging from one of her hands. She was in the middle of the sidewalk looking up at the sky. I think she looked scared. I think people are starting to remember. That scares me almost as much as the apocalypse did, because being as objective as I can about my experience, my situation was somewhat of a best case scenario. I had a building with lights, book, food, and water, all to myself. What could it have been like on the ground level with millions of people in a compact area? What about the rest of the world? I hope other people reading this also remember what happened. If you do, let me know. I get the feeling that we're going to reach a second terminal freakout point when everybody else starts to remember. Credit, Chance Kimber. So that was The Strangest Apocalypse by Chance Kimber. Now, to be honest, I liked the story. I thought it was a pretty decent story. Like I said, there was some typos, and there was, like, every now and then there was some stuff that didn't necessarily make sense and wasn't well explained, but overall, it was a pretty good story. It had a good vocabulary, and it wasn't taking itself too seriously, while at the same time it was taking itself seriously, where it wasn't being trying to be too wacky. Like I mentioned earlier, it has similarities with Weird Mageddon from Gravity Falls, but it's not really something to the point where I would say, oh yeah, this is Weird Mageddon. But yeah, I hope y'all enjoyed the video. So like, subscribe, and turn notifications if you're feeling a little fruity. Bye.